drainage now, so it's, these two is a little drier now, so that improved a lot. Okay. Oh, yeah? Okay. It is 5:30. West Fargo Planning and Zoning meeting on Tuesday, November 14th. First order is calling it to order. Second item is the approval of the order of the agenda. Move to approve. Move and second to approve the agenda as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Next item, C, approval of minutes. You're messing me up by going to alphabets from letters there, Aaron. My brain can't handle it. Approval of the minutes from the October 10th meeting as published.
Motion to approve. Second.
We moved in second to approve the minutes as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Item D, which is our regular agenda items. The first item is a public hearing, A23-28, Steffi's 10th edition, a request to replot Lot 4, Block 1, Steffi's 8th edition, 445 7th Street Northwest, City of West Fargo, North Dakota. Thank you.
Thank you. This application was received in order to vacate a portion of a permanent storm sewer easement along the north property line for development purposes. The applicant is proposing to replat in order to vacate the storm sewer easement along the north property line from 25 feet to 10 feet to allow building an addition onto an existing warehouse. Staff has reviewed and has no concerns. A new proposed storm sewer pipe will be installed within the 10-foot easement to help provide drainage for the site, building, and existing corridor along the northern property line. Staff recommends approval of the proposed application on the basis that it is consistent for city plans and ordinances. This is a public hearing. I'm available to answer any questions, as is the applicant.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. At this time, I'd like to open up for any public comment or questions on this topic. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, was that section? Commissioners? Questions?
Looked like this has been reviewed by engineering and no concerns there.
That's correct, Commissioner. I guess from the engineering side of the house, there are no future plans for any utilities to be installed in that area. Currently, basically the utility that's present there is servicing that, the property there itself, and we don't foresee any, deleterious effects, from this decision tonight here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application. Any further discussion before vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Application passes. Item 2 in the regular agenda is review and approve 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting dates. Wow, 24. Can we scroll down to that one where the dates? I didn't print out. Thank you. Are these the same? It's still always a Tuesday?
Except for one, except for 8.
Correct. There is April 8th is a Monday. There's a conflict with the Board of Equalization every year. So otherwise, they're the second Tuesday of each month.
Do we have to vote on this?
It would hurt.
All right. Let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Dates are approved. And we're going all the way into 25, actually, January 14th. Scary. Item E, non-agenda items. Nothing?
Nothing from me.
And you guys want to?
Setting a record here, Joe.
I know, that's a good one, because I have a serious headache,
Don't screw it up.
struggling, apologize. So, next item F. Move to adjourn from the regular agenda. Thank you.
Second.
Moving second to adjourn from the regular agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Regular agenda is adjourned. Now we can go to the discussion agenda. Downtown master plan.
All right, it's all right, I'll kick off some discussion here tonight. The first thing I just want to quickly note in regards to the discussion agenda is that both of the items that we've got on here tonight are really introductory in nature. And so it's really an introduction to these two topics with the idea or the expectation that there's going to be some more discussion to come in the next month, or in the case of item 2, in the next few months. And so I'll just kind of preface this whole discussion with that. And so unfortunately, it might be a little bit more of me presenting than actual discussion tonight. But we did feel it was important to at least kind of set the stage, if you will, and kind of get the discussion initiated. So with that, I'll dive into discussion item number 1, the downtown master plan discussion here. And so I think 2 months ago in September, at the September Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, I provided a brief update of where the project was at that time. Since then, we do now have a final draft of the plan document, which is published now on the project website, and it is available for public review and comment. That plan document, the draft final plan, will be available for review and comment throughout the month of November for anybody looking to dive into it and provide some feedback. So on the screen here, if you can see it, I just pulled up the project website. The project website can be accessed through the planning department page on the city's website. Otherwise, we will be sending out.
Did all the commissioners get the link to that, like I got?
No, not yet. So you should have a handout in front of you that has kind of the November project update sheet. This handout also has the project website. And then there will be an email coming out, I believe, probably tomorrow to the Planning and Zoning Commission with a virtual copy as well as that link. And then over the course of the next few days, you'll probably see some correspondence just coming out from the city, just notifying the general public of the final plan on the project website here. For purposes of today's discussion, I just wanted to provide a quick update on where we're at in the process and what some of the next steps are over the course of roughly the next month here. And then just provide a brief introduction to the plan document itself, and then spend a little time talking through some of the recommendations and with an eye towards ultimately some implementation strategies. So with that, in terms of where we're at, again, the downtown master plan is now publicly available. Just direct your attention to the website here. You will see kind of a giant link to the project, the draft plan document right on the top of the web page. And as you scroll down, you'll find some more information, including a link to one final survey. That survey, I'll just open it up here quick, is really specific towards the implementation section, so Chapter 7 of the plan document. It's really trying to get some feedback on some of those implementation strategies that the plan outlines. So that's the major update to the website. In terms of where we're at and some of the next steps as well, we are planning, or we will have a public open house that will take place on Tuesday, November 28th. That will be from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. at South Elementary School. Again, that was Tuesday, November 28th. So You can all feel free to attend that. That will be open to the general public. The intent is for it to be a true kind of open house style where people can come and go as they please. We're not going to have any sort of formal presentation or anything like that. It'll most likely be some poster boards and staff kind of standing around a room, mingling with attendees, and we'll have some handouts and different information on the project specific for folks to take home with them, as well as some type of likely a sticker activity where people can provide some feedback right there on the boards if they'd like.
What time is that at again, Aaron?
It'll be 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, November 28th at South Elementary on 7th Avenue there. So more information will be forthcoming once we solidify, some of those the details of the nature of the open house itself. But we do have that date set and have worked that out with the school district for use of their facilities there. So again, the feedback online will be open until after that open house as well. After this kind of last round of input on the plan document, our intention is to have a joint kind of presentation and discussion of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Commission, which we're just working to schedule, find some potential dates and times that work for that, making sure that the city commissioners are available for something like that. Most likely it will be probably, or maybe 3:30 on a city commission Monday, potentially, I think it's December 18th, is that mid-December time frame, just to kind of give you a heads up. But there again, additional information will be forthcoming. Again, the primary audience for that will be Planning and Zoning Commission and City Commission, but certainly that would be available or open to the public as well. So that'll be kind of the final presentation from the actual project team, and then we'll have some time for some general discussion at that as well. And so the intention tonight is not to go through the document in any sort of great detail, but mainly to draw your attention to the fact that it's available for you to start looking at in preparation for those next couple of engagements here. And then finally, once that conversation has taken place, our intention right now anyway would be for staff to then bring the plan document through the Planning and Zoning Commission and then to the City Commission for some type of adoption. Along with the adoption of the plan document itself, we would likely be looking at some initial implementation steps. And so that's kind of what I wanted to, start the conversation with you guys about tonight, is some of those implementation steps. But first I'll talk through some of the structure of the plan document itself before kind of getting into some of that detail. So with that, on the screen again, I'll pull up the plan document and just kind of provide an orientation here for everybody. So the document itself does consist of the document, the plan kind of proper, as well as a number of different appendices. And actually a bulk of the total document is in the appendices. And so anybody looking to get into the weeds or the details, there's a lot of reading material for anybody super interested. But the plan itself is split up into several chapters, has an executive summary, which does include a how to use this plan page, which is kind of what I'm talking to you about right now. The first couple of chapters provide some background detail in terms of the engagement, the public input that took place as part of this that helped inform the discussion. And then chapter 2, similarly, the existing conditions and some of the data that also helped inform the discussion and kind of led to the direction of this plan from the beginning. The next 4 chapters, so chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6, are each specific to each one of the 4 primary goals of the downtown placemaking master plan. Chapter 3 is specific to placemaking. As you're aware, this project was primarily funded through a placemaking grant through the North Dakota Department of Commerce, and so placemaking is really kind of the main focus area that really is kind of the common theme throughout all of the plan, not just specific to chapter 3 here. So, that one is kind of a little bit special, I guess, in that regard. Chapter 4, business and economic development. Chapter 5 is pedestrian parking and access. And chapter 6, infill density and redevelopment, kind of having to do with more of the land use components there. So each of those chapters provides a great bit of detail on each one of those kind of core subject areas. And then ultimately, Chapter 7 provides a table of some recommended action steps and some supporting strategies that the city can consider when looking to implement and kind of make some progress on each one of these 4 topic areas. And so there are 4 goals that are specific to those 4 topic areas outlined in the plan document. And then finally, like I said, there are a number of different appendices that provide a lot more detail with a lot of references that you'll find throughout the plan that reference you to those various appendices. So with that overview, I'll maybe jump down to the implementation section here. Or not. Scroll. So the implementation chapter, it starts out with just a brief overview of some of the work that the project steering committee did in helping to kind of pare down a long list of potential strategies that the consultant team kind of started with. They were essentially kind of rated on their impact and their effort. So high impact, low effort were some of those recommended strategies floated to the top. Conversely, high effort, low impact were the ones that were kind of left out of this matrix that they've included in this Chapter 7 here. And so the implementation matrix is split up into the 4 different goals, so those 4 main topic areas, and they provided kind of the overarching action step that corresponds to making progress towards that goal, and then some individual strategies for each of those action steps. The 3rd column there, they've assigned a priority, short-term versus long-term for the most part. And then some potential champions or partners that may be involved in helping to implement some of this stuff. And so I think it's important to recognize that it's not just the city that would be implementing this. There's a lot of stakeholders, a lot of partners. This is intended to be a community planning document, and certainly the hope is that there's other community partners that can find some value in some of this stuff. And then lastly, the column at the right-hand side is just a list of potential resources. These might be things like various grant opportunities that the consultant team was aware of. So some of them kind of may or may not apply more than others, I guess, depending upon the specifics there. And so these are all links, and so it is very much a virtual document. There's a lot more interaction with this document. I think you'll find that throughout the document, as opposed to if you were to find, print it off, you'd kind of lose a lot of the horsepower behind the document here. So with that, as you read through the Chapter 7 here and the different chapters, another thing I would just highlight is that in the implementation matrix that I'm scrolling through right here comes primarily from a lot of the input and feedback that the consultant team got throughout the project. You'll find that within each of the individual chapters, there are some additional considerations or recommendations that are kind of supplementary to this. Things like best practices that the city can also consider. And so you can kind of think of this as a menu of different options to kind of choose from. Ultimately, where I'm going with this is that I think you'll find very quickly that there are a lot of recommendations, a lot of ideas that are presented here. I will say that none of this is fiscally constrained, and obviously each of these action steps would require some degree of investment, whether it's time or some type of funding. And so recognizing that and recognizing certainly the other priorities that the city has, staff's intention is to kind of take these action steps and try and kind of pare that down even further into what are some recommendations or some immediate action steps that the city could realistically consider, recognizing the limitations on time and resources more generally. And so that's where I wanted to kind of steer the direction or steer the conversation to a certain degree in terms of I think that's what staff is most interested in hearing from the Planning and Zoning Commission is, which of these seem most realistic, which one of these, are kind of worth the effort. Is there anything on here that doesn't really seem realistic? If you look at the survey on the project website, you'll find that that's really what the questions are trying to dive into in terms of feedback from the public as well. And so that's ultimately, I think, where staff sees this going is, the final plan is, again, I'm kind of thinking of it as a menu of options, and then kind of a set of recommendations that staff could bring forward at the time of plan adoption with, based on everything we learned through this process, these are the recommendations we feel we can realistically kind of set forth in implementing, given everything else we know. So in closing, I'll just mention, I think there are some kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of some logical next steps. That includes things like, safety was one of the biggest concerns in terms of traffic and pedestrian safety was one of the biggest concerns that came out of the public feedback. And so they have recommendations in here for things like enhanced pedestrian crosswalk improvements. So something like that is a capital improvement, and so we can logically just take that recommendation and kind of insert that right into the city's capital improvement plan discussion. So we can put that in with all the other project ideas that are out there that are kind of under consideration for future funding, and it would need to, those projects would kind of need to be prioritized along with all the other infrastructure needs of the city. Likewise, with some of the recommendations for things like incentives and different things in relation to business and economic development, our business manager Casey is working on some economic development strategy right now, and a lot of those recommendations can fold right into the work that she's already working on. Same with any zoning updates. There are a few things in here that touch on some of the downtown mixed use and some of the adjacent commercial zoning districts that the city could consider. That's something that we could logically kind of take some next steps on. And so there's probably some
Timing on getting to that point of prioritization and selection of the.
yeah. So our intention would be to again hold that joint presentation and discussion in mid-December.
Okay, so
And
that discussion is where we'd like to get to.
we might start to introduce it during that time. That presentation and discussion will largely be focused on the plan document itself. Kind of where I'm going with this tonight is kind of the next step after the plan is complete. What do we do with that plan? What are the next steps in terms of putting it into action? And so the intention right now, as staff sees it, is we would follow up with that meeting. It would likely be in January, roughly after the new year. Planning would then bring forward some formal action in terms of adopting the plan and bringing some recommended next steps in terms of implementation, kind of in parallel with the plan adoption, if you will. That's kind of how we're thinking about it right now. There's a lot of discussion yet to happen, and so certainly subject to change based on some of the feedback that we receive. But I just want to kind of make you aware, I guess, of the direction that we're looking to kind of take this, and certainly invite any thoughts and feedback.
Thanks, Aaron. Is there a stated goal in this plan, or is it up to interpretation of, make downtown great again or something like that?
Yeah, there is. There is a, see if I can find it here quick while I
Way to
talk.
pull in politics there, Eric.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself, but. That was an original thought. Yeah.
You're probably not going to be able to find it here now, but there's a mission statement and guiding principles. There's a lot of discussion on that. Essentially, this is really building on the West Fargo 2.0 comprehensive plan. There is some specific recommendations in that plan that talk about downtown West Fargo. And so that really set the stage for the direction. So this plan is really intended to build on the recommendations and directions set forth in the comp plan. And so you'll see that in some of the goals in terms of the walkability aspects, just the placemaking in general, making downtown a unique destination. Some of those themes you'll kind of see throughout. And so, right here, for example, this yellow wheel here, you might recognize this image. This comes directly from the 2.0 comp plan in terms of the guiding principles of that comp plan. And I apologize, it's hard to read there. They basically took each of the guiding principles and then kind of refined it to make it specific to downtown West Fargo, based on the initial, kind of the first round of public input and feedback that they received. So that's what helped inform kind of the overarching, mission statement and everything else. So the last thing I'll just note really quickly in terms of the kind of next steps and as we start to think about implementation, there probably is, in addition to those low-hanging fruits that I mentioned, some opportunity. I think one of the big maybe issues that became a little bit more apparent through this process is just kind of some of the lack of champion stakeholders in the downtown area that's outside of City Hall. And so finding those community partners, and they are out there, but they are somewhat dispersed, or they are operating in with individual missions. And so some examples are West Fargo events. They do a lot downtown at the plaza, but they're really focused on the plaza for the most part, outside of some of their larger community events. They do certainly check a lot of boxes in terms of what we're looking to do. They're probably the primary place-making entity right now for the city of West Fargo in terms of some of those cultural events and different things. There is a Yards Business Association downtown, but they have somewhat lost some steam, for lack of a better term, in recent times. And so I think there's a need there's perhaps a role for the city to play in helping to kind of get that group back together and kind of rebuild some of the infrastructure to get that group on its feet. Likewise, we have a public art advisory committee. I think there is some opportunity to look at that committee, and one of the thoughts is taking some of the recommendations here and maybe broadening the scope of that committee to be more placemaking focused and not solely focused on public art. Public art is certainly a component of placemaking, and so that's kind of the ongoing discussion that we're having as staff right now, and something that we'd like to kind of refine before we come back with anything specific. So just letting you know, I think, where the conversation is internally to a certain degree. So that's kind of where we're at right now. With that, again, this is intended really to be an introductory conversation with a lot more to come in the future, but certainly welcome any immediate comments anybody has.
Question about the business association. How are they supported? Is it just kind of a volunteer get together? Because I see under the resident demand, did they come up with the holes in the merchandise mix?
Sorry.
To identify, like, they need, a grocery store, convenience store, that sort of thing. So what I'm saying is the business association identifying the needs, and how are they equipped
Yeah.
forward to meet those needs?
Yeah, that's where I'm not sure on some of the details of the existing Yards Business Association. I think there was an effort by the city to kind of get that group formed to begin with a few years back. And I think they are largely, volunteer driven. And so it's really, once you have some represented members that are more active than others, I should say. And, as they have other things going on in their lives and kind of can spend more time on business association type needs, they kind of come in and out, and that's where I think they're very relatively new, I should say, and kind of in need of potentially some support, and if I think there's maybe some opportunity there for us to look at these different entities and maybe bring them together in some capacity in order to get some traction on some of these recommendations. Because a lot of this is things that, I think it's really important to find those community, stakeholders to help get engaged. It can't just be, city or city staff working on this stuff. It is a community plan, and so it does require some collective action.
I'd be really interested in something like that. I come from a shopping center management.
Sure.
And you have to have a merchandise mix
Mhm.
in order to get foot traffic.
Yep.
And if you're long in one area and short in another, you lose it.
Yep.
So if there is, I don't know, is economic development involved in, putting together those meetings, or?
Yes. So I know the Yards Business Association meetings used to actually take place at City Hall just for a meeting venue. I think more recently they started taking place actually, physically downtown. But there again, as you get kind of new business owners coming in and, some of the existing business owners maybe not really seeing tangible value in some of those, initial meetings, I think that's where some of the struggle is in trying to kind of get to that tipping point where they kind of become self-sustainable. So I'm kind of rambling at this point, but that's kind of the summary is that's seems to be a gap, and there's probably an opportunity for us as a city to do some kind of strategic thinking to help fill that gap or help kind of build that coalition that can help drive some of the discussion outside of City Hall, is how I would summarize it.
One of the things that comes up a lot is in West Fargo, there is no free places to open. You end up going to Fargo. Otherwise, Russ Head is $60 to rent a room, and I hear that all the time. If they could bring more to West Fargo downtown, if there was a place to hold meetings, for nonprofit groups and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are opportunities there for how we enter.
Yep. I will say too, a lot of the recommendations are, they kind of build on themselves, and so things like co-working spaces downtown can help bring in new businesses, act as an incubator space for downtown. That can tie in, directly into some of the economic development strategy in terms of what are we looking to incentivize to come downtown. And, things like that come right out of the 2.0 comp plan as well. That was specifically in there, I know. So.
So Aaron, what specifically would you like from us? Read the plan, be prepared to attend the meetings, and then share thoughts?
Yep. So yeah, I didn't really expect there to be a whole lot of discussion here tonight. Again, this is kind of first introduction to a lot of this, and so I think moving forward, now is your opportunity to kind of dig into the details of the plan now that it's posted. Feel free to plan on attending that open house if you'd like. Look for some additional correspondence from staff in terms of that the joint discussion with the City Commission, and then. I think during that discussion is when we can kind of, hopefully between now and then, you'll have an opportunity to kind of think about some of what was discussed tonight, and then provide some thoughts in terms of what the next steps should start to look like. So, yeah.
And that would be likely here, December 18th, if you can
Yes, I would assume it would be at City Hall. It might not be in this room. It might be in the training room or some other. I think here, the training room are probably the two likely options. But we're hoping to get that scheduled here yet this week, I would hope. So,
Aaron, are you happy with this? You don't have to answer that if you don't want.
yeah, no, I think there is a lot of value in it. I think where this plan really shines is that placemaking element. If you weren't super involved in the some of the discussions with the steering committee, you'll find that I think one of the unique components of this plan was they had the subconsultant was is heavily involved in public art across the region, especially in the Midwest here, and does a lot of work in the Des Moines metro area, for example, and put together a very unique process where they solicited art concepts from actual artists from across the country to put proposals together for 3 different locations downtown. And so each of those proposals is included in the appendices. So there was 3 proposals for 3 different sites, so 9 proposals total. There was only, the Public Art Advisory Committee helped kind of make some recommendations on the winning proposal or the top proposal that's presented in the plan. but all of the proposals are included, and they are, some of them are very, very good, and, there's certainly a price tag on public art, but there again, building that capacity outside of City Hall in terms of going after, funding sources or grant dollars or, fundraising for public art. That's how, a lot of cities end up funding public art is kind of building those coalitions. And so if we want to see public art downtown sometime, that's kind of, I think this plan really kind of gets us pointed in the right direction for filling in some of those, art installation areas that were built right into the Cheyenne street infrastructure there. So they're just blank today, which is, hopefully they're not forever, so. That's all I've got, unless you guys have other questions or comments.
You gave us some homework.
Yep.
Go on to item 2.
Sounds good. So item 2 is the Title IV zoning text amendments. So here again, this is probably more of an introductory conversation more than discussion here tonight. But really just wanting to introduce this, and I think I might have mentioned this in a previous meeting. As the downtown placemaking process comes to a close, staff is looking to kick off another of the short-term projects that was identified in the West Fargo Planning Needs Assessment. I think that document was sent out following last month's meeting. But if you're not familiar, again, that the Planning Needs Assessment, which was completed last year, identifies short-term, midterm, and long-term projects. One of the short-term projects was the Title IV zoning text amendments, which was a recommendation that recognizing there's a need for some updates to the zoning and subdivision regulations that are kind of more urgent than others. There is a longer range project that identifies, or a midterm project that identifies the need for a unified development code update that would be something more comprehensive in nature. This is, so just to draw that distinction, this is not intended to be any sort of comprehensive update or anything. It's just a series of targeted and select updates to certain sections of the zoning code. So over the next few months, staff will be working on a handful of those select amendments to bring forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission for additional discussion and consideration. The idea, again, is that we would bring forward some proposed amendments for discussion purposes, so you'd probably see those on the discussion agenda 1 month, and the following month, after that discussion, is when we would bring them forward for potential recommendation or potential action. So it'd kind of be
We're
a,
not going to pull them all. We're going to do them step at a time. Is that how you're thinking about it?
I think it's yet to be seen on if we kind of batch these together or if we bring, a couple at a time. This is something that, staff's going to be working on kind of as we have time. And so we'll kind of see how things shake out and what the kind of cadence is of bringing some of those forward. But ideally, we'd be batching them in, to some degree so that we're not having to have a million of these discussions. So.
Personally, that would be my preference, especially when we go to the approval step.
Yep. No, absolutely, that makes sense. To begin with, we're looking at, staff's identified a few items that are worth looking at.
We have a list of the areas that we want to improve within the code, or is it still figuring out how many areas do we want to address?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'll provide a quick summary of that right now. So to start with, staff has identified a handful of different sections here. Specifically, we're looking at the subdivision requirements, things like best practices for cul-de-sacs and connectivity. That's an example where there's a misalignment between the comp plan and the actual ordinances, and we saw that in our recent subdivision application. We'll also be looking at clarification of our PUD, plan unit development standards, and some of those associated documents in terms of just clarifying that and kind of streamlining some of those requirements potentially. Also looking at clarification and updating to supplementary district regulations, which includes things like our landscaping requirements, fencing, buffering, outdoor storage of vehicles and equipment. So these are the kind of general purpose zoning requirements that apply across all zoning districts. Just to give you an example, the landscaping section is, I think, 30 pages in total, and includes kind of a standalone set of definitions independent from the definitions section, and so it needs a lot of TLC. Another section we'll be looking at is some off-street parking regulations. We do have several plan documents that speak to off-street parking, whether it's the downtown areas or just seeing if we're out of alignment, I guess, with some of the national best practices with different land uses, for example. And then lastly, non-conforming residential uses. This is an item that came up in the last legislative session in terms of currently any non-conforming residential use cannot be reestablished unless it complies 100% with all of our zoning and development regulations, which can create issues in certain circumstances if there is an older home that doesn't comply with today's requirements. It's grandfathered in as existing. However, if people go to sell or buy a home, oftentimes they might have trouble getting financing because the bank won't finance a property that's technically non-conforming, and if it burns down, they're not allowed to reconstruct it. And so looking at potential solutions to that issue is kind of the nature of that one. So those are kind of the first sections that staff intends to look at. But for purposes of tonight, I wanted to, I guess, make you aware of those, and then also ask the Planning and Zoning Commission, are there other areas that you feel should be of top priority in terms of some of these initial text amendments? And I will kind of just note that we're looking to keep the updates manageable. Certainly, we recognize things like, the sign code needs some, yeah.
I knew that word was coming.
Somewhere, I was surprised it didn't make the list.
Yeah, so, we are aware that there is some need, for example, in our sign code, but that is, in staff's estimation, that will be a heavy lift and really is a project by itself. So we're not looking to kind of, open up anything, too major. It's just really a light touch at this point in time. Again, with the recognition that, some type of more comprehensive update might be a couple years down the road yet, so.
When you,
When Jet Planning provided this code audit, 19 pages of recommendations, what kind of feedback do you have in that information that was provided? Because right now, this missing middle housing is red hot. And this document represents how West Fargo's codes don't work in order to facilitate missing middle housing. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so that is, I think that's a prime, good example of the downtown placemaking master plan that I think it's chapter 6 talks about the land use and future development chapter. There are some recommendations. I think you'll find there's a lot of alignment between that chapter and a lot of the, metro-wide discussion on middle housing right now in terms of identifying areas where that type of housing is appropriate. And so the downtown plan does talk about, that type of housing.
Can this shortcut any of the work that you guys need to do? It looks like there's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, I think it's worth considering in terms of at least having the initial discussion in terms of what that might look like. I will say, anytime you start tinkering with one single-family residential zoning districts, there is a degree of apprehension from the general public in terms of what that might mean for an individual property owner, for example. So there again, that's probably a judgment call on, and from you all, from the Planning and Zoning Commission on, if now is the right time to kind of start having those conversations, or if we want to, I think it's worth having some initial conversations on what that might look like for the city of West Fargo, Because it can go in any number of ways, whether it's the creation of new zoning districts, rezoning of, you know, swaths of land, or just modifications to our existing zoning districts. There's, you know, like, and so until we have, you know, that level of discussion with the public as well,
I guess what I was looking at is, what is your opinion of some of the recommendations that were involved?
yeah, no, I think they're good recommendations. I think there is you know, there is ongoing discussion with the completion of the metro-wide housing study. There is a lot of traction right now at the metro level in terms of having some of those discussions. And so in terms of, if you're asking me today, kind of where staff is at, I would say staff's probably recommendation today would be to kind of let's see where this metro-wide conversation goes. I think it's going to go in that direction to start, you know, asking the question at the metro level, you know, what does that look like within our metro? And I think there's some, I think that's the appropriate place, I guess, at this point in time to have that conversation. I don't want to get too far ahead of that conversation that is already kind of slowly happening, if you will. So I don't know if that's answers your question or not, but.
You know, save you guys a lot of time if, you know, because I know Fargo's potentially looking at doing a code out, same way for missing middle housing. And, you know, why not us?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I will say too, just since we're on the topic, MetroCog is looking to form some type of a metro-wide discussion on the topic of housing in general, including missing middle housing. And so they're potentially looking at the formation of a kind of a joint powers committee of some type with representation from all of the jurisdictions to talk about exactly this type of thing. And so that's why I say I think we'd be best served just kind of seeing how that conversation unfolds at the metro level, and then kind of advancing that conversation with the city of West Fargo in parallel to that conversation.
I think we could be a viable player.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
When you said clarification on the PUD, is that going to include what type of documentation will be submitted and approved as a part of that PUD? Because there was a little gray lines in the past as far as, you know, things like the landscape plan.
Yep.
Is it included or not?
Exactly, yep.
So that's going to be included in that clarification?
Correct, yeah. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. There's a lot of gray, there's a lot of interpretation in terms of what constitutes a PUD. And so clarifying what are those edges, what is the PUD document? You know, when you look at the PUD master plan, what elements of that master plan are, you know, are ordinance and cannot and must be followed versus what's just, you know, illustrative, you know, for example. So clarifying those boundaries and getting some, making sure it's clear to everybody in terms of what's approved, what's allowable, and everything in between. Any other topic areas off the top? Yeah, a lot going on. And here again, you know, you don't need to provide, you know, thoughts here tonight, but certainly as you think of things that you think staff should be considering as we look to open up the code, feel free to let any of us know at any time. Just reach out via email or phone anytime. So.
Aaron, over the last, had a number of instances when there was an item that had a notice requirement to the neighbors. And we asked questions about, well, how come it's 100 feet, how come it's 300 feet? What was the notice requirements? I imagine that's probably a can of worms, but I'm just curious, is that something that should be looked at, does need to be looked at, bigger lift than happening now?
No, I'd say it's not too big of a lift if that's something that the Planning and Zoning Commission is interested in. I don't know that staff has any, you know, major concerns with the way that it's written currently, but I know there are differing opinions on, you know, what is the appropriate distance, and so we could certainly look at that.
That has come up a few times.
I don't know that I know enough to say there is or
Mhm. Yep.
Anything else you want on the topic?
Nope, that's all I've got, so.
Well, then I'll go to adjourn for the discussion. We don't, do we need to? It's adjourned, discussion. Agenda is adjourned. I have that power? I have power. Thank you. There's a test. Well, there's a lot of reading coming out of this meeting. I was.
But you haven't seen the signed document?
I saw it be posted today. They sent out a notice, hey, it's been posted. That's why I saw it right before I came here.
Like, it's, you haven't gone over it yet.